Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We just had an extraordinarily interesting morning. We had some speeches that I think we will continue to be talking about, and we'll hear a lot more about what is happening in the Ministry of Public Utilities with respect to risk management and future-proofing the economy of Trinidad and Tobago via public utilities. We are at the Caribbean Risk Management Academy. Our founder just offered to the minister the first fellowship in risk management from the Caribbean Risk Management Academy. And the fellowship program is but one of the developments within the academy that we want to share with you. In order to develop the entire field of risk management, we have developed and rolled out a slew of programs that we think will resonate right now. We are in crisis around the world. I mean, these are times that are definitely, by their very nature, by the number of things that are absolutely going wrong, they are times that are unprecedented, people like to say. So what do we do in these times? These times really bring into focus for many of us that we really don't know a lot. And risk management is one of those growing fields that bring the focus on what you don't know and what you need to know, and ensuring that, as mentioned by Karen earlier, Dr. Karen Hardy, emerging risk is something that we always need to keep on our calendar. We need to be continuously horizon scanning. So the Risk Management Academy is here at the forefront of developing this area of expertise within the Caribbean. So when organizations started to become the way that business was run, you would usually have a general manager, and then certain fields started distinguishing themselves. First and foremost among them was finance. And then other types of specializations began to grow. So organizations now have chief financial officers. They also have chief HR officers. They have chief marketing officers. And cutting edge or very progressive organizations also now have chief risk officers. Risk management in the Caribbean is in its infancy, and the programs that are offered at the Caribbean Risk Management Academy will not be found anywhere else. We have right now, within the slew of programs that we will be offering, we have coming up next a very, very timely strategic risk management in healthcare. We will have a program on the psychology of risk, because when you talk about transformation and when you talk about risk to organizations, many practitioners will admit that the most important risk in organizations are the people risk. So the conversations we were having earlier with the minister and with Dr. Hardy, where we spoke about how to transform organizations, the reality is the best ideas and the best technology are not going to optimize your organizations, or will actually get you not very far if you don't have the talent and the culture as well as the leadership. So when we explore the psychology of risk, we're going to explore how people and their behavior and their thinking and their attitude impact risk. So these are some of the cutting edge things that we have moving forward on our plate. In addition to that, the Caribbean Risk Management Academy has developed a risk psychometric assessment, the only one of its kind right now, and developed from scratch, tested with the help of clinical and organizational psychologists and statisticians right here in the Caribbean. So these are the things that we want to offer to organizations, so that the organizational toolbox will be more advanced and be more ready, so that the organization itself can be more comfortably future-proofed. And as our founder and president sometimes says, risk management and the tools that we provide don't prevent disasters, but they ensure that the organization is set to either maximize the opportunities that arise with disasters, and the reality is there is crisis and there is opportunity in every crisis, or to minimize the negative impact of those adverse events. So we are continuing, as we have been, to do our research, to invite our colleagues, both in academia and in practice, to join us to ensure that we expand the risk management in the Caribbean. We are offering these programs. We are pursuing collaborations with other institutes, and we are ensuring that throughout all of this, the programs and the research are very Caribbean specific, because our colleagues throughout the Caribbean would often lament that programs and other international research do not always capture the peculiarities of our experience in small island developing states and the culture, the importance of culture to risk management. And I mean, we will admit that the Caribbean culture is quite unique. So our programs and the mission of the organization is really to ensure that the Caribbean is future ready, that our businesses and our governments are future ready, that all of the risks that we face, and we are in fact more vulnerable than many of the larger developed countries. We bear the brunt of what is happening, the decisions that are made, such as things like climate change, things like energy, renewables. We can often benefit the most from some of these opportunities and be most adversely impacted by some of the negativities. So we need to be ahead of the game. We need to get out front with our risk management expertise and talent. We do have the talent. We have, as the minister reiterated, we have the competence, we have the capacity. We just need to focus, and in collaboration with the Caribbean Risk Management Academy, where we have both international, regional, and local expertise, we can really show the world how risk management is done and ensure that as a region, we come out of this economic collapse stronger than ever and with world-leading practice and world-leading economics. So join us at the Caribbean Risk Management Academy. This conference is just one of the things that we will be doing. At our next conference, we will hope to be able to present some research by the academics who we are working with. We will also be forwarding information on our future programs like the risk management in healthcare, like the psychology of risk, as well as the risk psychometric assessment and a risk early warning system for companies and organizations. So these are some of the exciting things that are happening and we know will benefit our organizations, because as Dr. Hardy said, risk management is not theory. And the organizations that practice risk management show bottom line results. So don't think that it's an option anymore. If you want to succeed, you want to survive as an organization, and you want to thrive in tomorrow's world, better believe that risk management is your missing skill organizationally. Do you have a risk practitioner on your board? Do you have risk management skills deeply embedded within your senior management team? If not, we're here to help, and we're happy to evangelize, to spread the word, and to deepen the discussion, as well as embed the practice and to build the community of practice through our associateship, our fellowship, our research, and our events. So after the Honourable Minister, I mean, he's a hard act to follow, but we have another forward-thinking regional minister, another forward-thinking member of government. We have the Honourable Iram Lewis out of the Bahamas. The Honourable Mr. Lewis, the Honourable Minister, is the Minister of State with responsibility for the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management, and Reconstruction. He's an architect by profession, so the Honourable Minister is very, very familiar with building and breaking down. And he is joining us to talk about future-proofing. Prior to joining government, he has been a very successful athlete. And I'm mentioning that in particular because sport is a fantastic analogy for risk management. The Honourable Minister Gonzalez referred to sailing, and let's see what the Honourable Minister Lewis will say to us. So Minister Lewis is going to be sharing with us his experience and thoughts on future proofing for the next disaster. So I would like to now invite the Honourable Minister to join us. Thank
you. Mr. Ken Hackshaw, founder and president of the Caribbean-Risk Management Academy, fellow keynote speakers, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning. Disasters are increasing worldwide at an unprecedented and unequivocal rate, resulting in large-scale loss and damage to individuals, communities, infrastructure, livelihoods, and countries. Within the Caribbean region, the existing hazard landscape requires immediate and decisive action in disaster risk management. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to share the Bahamian perspective to our Caribbean narrative regarding future-proofing for the next disaster. Like most countries in our region, the Bahamas has experienced the full brunt of Mother Nature's fury. I could recall in 2017 observing the devastating and catastrophic impact of Hurricane Maria on the beautiful nation, Dominica. Who would have thought that some 2 years later, a similar story would have been written along the Bahama islands of Abaco and Grand Bahama by Hurricane Dorian? September 1st, 2019 is a day that will be forever etched in Bahamian history. That is when Hurricane Dorian made landfall on Elbow Key, Abaco, as a calamitous and cataclysmic Category 5 hurricane. The United States National Hurricane Center noted that this tropical system was the strongest storm to make landfall in the Atlantic Basin. Central Abaco was left decimated and unrecognizable. As if its fury was not enough, Dorian moved along the spine of Grand Bahama at 1 mile per hour, subjecting this low-lying island to 41 hours of intense hurricane force conditions. Wind gusts blew more than 200 miles per hour. Storm surges swelled 18 to 23 feet, and rainfall fell, amassing to more than 2 feet. The initial damage assessment for Hurricane Dorian were valued at a staggering US $3.4 billion, representing nearly a quarter of the country's gross domestic product. But this amount is in no way comparable to the 74 souls that perished and the many more that remain missing today. Ladies and gentlemen, this story plays a crucial role in the reason I am here with you today. The toll of Hurricane Dorian and similar superstorms reminds us of the impact of our changing climate. In its fifth assessment report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warned that intensified hurricanes are likely due to warmer sea surface temperatures. As a vulnerable small island developing state, the Bahamas must develop and enhance its arsenal in the war against climate change like all countries in our region. To fight this battle, all of us must take careful consideration of various adaptive measures. As a region of small island keys and atolls that are vulnerable and susceptible to multiple hazardous events, we can no longer sit idly by and twiddle our thumbs as our countrymen suffer. Understanding this very reality, on September 23, 2019, the government of the Bahamas, under the leadership of Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Dr. Hubert Minnis, formed the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction and the Disaster Reconstruction Authority, DRA, to which I was appointed as Minister of State. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the DRA are the two departments that fall under the aegis of the newly formed ministry. NEMA, which was formed in 2001, serves as its preparation and mitigation arm, while the DRA is tasked with recovery and reconstruction in designated disaster zones. Our goal is to have both departments working in tandem to fulfill the goal of comprehensive disaster management. The mainstreaming of this ministry and the Disaster Reconstruction Authority into existing structures and institutions is essential considering the climate emergency we find ourselves in today. With that being said, the Bahamas government looked at the events of 2019 and established the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction and the DRA, understanding that these institutions must identify and minimize risk and vulnerabilities, draw on and learn from past experiences, consider resource mobilization strategies, develop mechanisms for adequate financial resources, establish clear institutional roles and responsibilities, communicate openly with the public and encourage participation, and ensure that all policies, procedures, and programs remain flexible and adaptive while ensuring transparency and accountability. Further to this, the DRA, which is headed by its managing director, operates under the guidance of the board of directors. This authority has similar powers and instruments of other national authorities, giving it the ability to act rapidly and with greater flexibility. The DRA is responsible for assessing the reconstruction needs of a disaster zone and preparing a reconstruction plan, monitoring, regulating, and administering all matters related to a disaster zone, arranging the distribution of funds or materials for construction, overseeing the restoration of government services in a disaster zone, and establishing and coordinating relationship with national and international bodies engaged with similar or ancillary pursuits. The Disaster Reconstruction Authority Act 2019 gave this institution the power to accept and manage donations, engage contracts necessary to carry out its functions, and appoint employees as it considers appropriate. These arrangements seek to remove the bureaucratic obstructions as well as unnecessary regulatory roadblocks and red tapes, which may hinder recovery and reconstruction efforts on the ground. Further to this, the DRA has the authority to remove or demolish any building, structure, or property, construct roadways, building, and other structures, and direct any person to stop any work or operation and connect or disconnect utility supplies. Such powers are essential in the aftermath of a disaster. On the island of Abaco, there were several unregulated makeshift communities which served as dwelling places for thousands of residents, primarily undocumented immigrants. Most of these communities were utterly devastated, and their inhabitants represent a considerable portion of those dead or missing. Understanding this, post-Hurricane Dorian, the government announced a moratorium on construction in these communities, primarily to ensure that if dwellers had legal rights to the land, the reconstruction of these structures would be congruent with national building codes. Ensuring resilience in recovery is a must. All of these factors are noteworthy to ensure future-proofing and risk reduction. Further to this, to ensure resilience and the application of local knowledge and skills in a disaster zone, the Act called for the establishment of a Disaster Zone Reconstruction Committee, which is to play a significant role in executing the functions of the DRA. Ladies and gentlemen, best practices worldwide and academic literature remind us that policies, legislation, and regulations are crucial to emergency management. The International Federation of Red Cross explains that laws and regulations serve as a foundation for building community resilience. They are essential to reducing existing risks posed by natural hazards, preventing new risks from arising, and making people safer. In 2005, the Hyogo Framework for Action highlighted the importance of good legislation to support disaster risk reduction. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, adopted in March 2015, calls for a renewed focus on reviewing and strengthening legal frameworks. These are international agreements that the region stands by. We have been given the call. It is time to act in a meaningful manner. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction, the Cabinet of the Bahamas recently approved a resilient recovery policy. The purpose of the resilient recovery policy is to provide context and guidelines for recovery planning and operations that are timely, efficient, and facilitate a pathway to resilient development. It also articulates the requirements that will inform the organization and institutional arrangements to achieve this. This resilient recovery policy establishes a vision and a deliberate system of principles to guide decisions and a rational process of recovery within the framework of the National Economic Development Plan. 5 key goals are identified for policy development in the areas of safety and security, access to infrastructure and services, livelihoods and economic development, institutional and capacity development, and community engagement and partnership. Each of these goals are embedded in the core principles of disaster and environmental management. The Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction will have oversight for this policy, including the collaboration with central government, local government, and non-state actors key to promoting the government's agenda for resilience. The National Emergency Management Agency will have primary responsibility for immediate response, focusing on life-saving activities, essential service restoration, as well as relief and welfare issues, whereas the Disaster Reconstruction Authority will have responsibility for reconstruction initiatives in declared disaster zones. Resilient recovery is key to minimizing loss in the future. Recovery policies must reduce the likelihood of future shocks and increase society's resilience to them when they do occur. Fellow disaster management practitioners, perhaps one of the most crucial phases to future-proofing is hazard mitigation. In the Bahamas, we understand hazard mitigation as a continuous or sustained action taken to minimize or eliminate long-term risks to people and their assets from various hazards. Hazard mitigation includes various structural and non-structural measures to reduce damages and loss. Structural measures include, but are not limited to, flood walls, sea walls, revetment, or beach nourishment. Non-structural measures include, but are not limited to, land use management, education, or population limits. These measures can substantially reduce the growing price tag associated with these hazards. These various measures provide opportunities to limit the impact of the multitude of hazard-related events we face across the Caribbean landscape. Understanding the aforementioned, the Bahamas, along with partners from the United Nations Development Program, or UNDP, devised a guide to housing standard for the Bahamas, Build Back Better. The work of emergency management is distributed across many entities and levels. Mitigation is no exception. All facets of the profession of emergency management must be engaged for mitigation to occur in a practical, holistic, and efficient manner. Thus, the guide was devised along with my ministry, the Ministry of Public Works, and the University of the Bahamas, and considers improved building codes and construction practices to ensure resilience and minimize loss and suffering. My ministry, along with the Ministry of Public Works, is working judiciously to ensure that these policies someday bear the force of law. Ladies and gentlemen, if we comprehensively and holistically proof for future disasters, we can reduce our economic vulnerability. Climate change is here, and hurricanes are becoming more severe and complex. Hence, we must act accordingly. We can no longer operate from a reactionary position. We must tread the path of being proactive. We are far from perfect in our approach to disaster management in the Bahamas. Like most of our Caribbean counterparts, we face challenges in human and technical capacity as well as financial availability. Nonetheless, we are making an effort to travel the road of resilience and sustainability. I urge you all to make similar decisions. We are one region facing similar threats and risk. When one nation is devastated, whether it be Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados or St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we all feel the pain and share in the suffering. We must be a cohesive unit in ensuring our resilience. Colleagues, the centralization of disaster risk reduction into an organization with legal and financial support is paramount. We have experienced the impacts of several hurricanes and have decided to learn from them and tread the path of resilience and sustainability. The Bahamas is perhaps one of the most vulnerable nations in our region, with 80% of the landmass of our scattered islands and atolls standing less than 5 feet above mean sea level. There is undoubtedly a need for us to ensure resilience through adaptation and institutional strengthening. It is forums like this that allow us to share our experiences and learn from one another as we stand in this war against Mother Nature's fury as a united front. My brothers and sisters, it was American author, activist and lecturer Helen Keller who penned it well when she wrote, "Alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much." End quote. We are in this together. I thank you.
That was the Honourable Minister Iram Lewis, Minister of State in the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction of the Bahamas. We thank the Minister for the time that he just spent with us and for sharing the philosophy and the development of the risk culture within the government of the Bahamas. And that experience is instructive for all of us within the Caribbean in terms of the things that we can do and the things that we absolutely need to do to future-proof ourselves personally, because at this stage, as we live the experience of a pandemic, we know that future-proofing starts at the level of the home and the immediate family and the self. And then our organizations, our societies as a whole. So it starts with us.